Hi, and welcome to Piano Teaching Success TV. I'm Gillian Erskine, your host for today's show, as we join piano teachers around the world to be inspired, uplifted, and make our job a little easier as we explore our passion for teaching piano. Well, today we continue our deep dive into providing you real-life practical tips and ideas for working with children with learning difficulties. Very often when we receive a call from a parent with a child with learning difficulties, we may be their last hope. And this is what happened to mum of four and talented, creative piano teacher Janet Olsen, who lives in Utah in the US. Janet has experienced what it is to be a parent of two children on the autism spectrum. And today, Janet shares her experience both as a mum and teacher of children with learning difficulties. I know you're going to enjoy Janet's unique perspective and insights. Janet, I think you're a kind of special needs kid magnet. But as a mother of special needs children, you weren't really looking at taking on anyone else's special needs kids, were you? But that all changed. Can you tell us a story about how that happened?
Yes. Well, I have special needs children at home, and I really wasn't looking for any special needs students in my studio. That wasn't something that I had thought of at all. I have my own kids, and I didn't want to have to deal with somebody else's kids and their issues. But then one day, a lady called up and said, "You are our last hope. We really want to do music. We know that he enjoys it. Would you be willing to do something with him, anything with him?" My brain was saying no. Because you can open up a big can of, worms, really. But they came over for their intake, and, as soon as he walked into the studio and had this huge smile, my heart just started beating really fast. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do with him or how we're going to do it, but if you want me to try, I would love to have the opportunity to learn together with him. And it's been an not well, it has been enjoyable, but it has been an adventure with him for sure. And we are both learning. So that was the beginning of having special needs children in my studio.
Ah, I bet you that must have been music to her ears when you said that you were prepared to give it a go.
I I think I had no she I wanted to make sure she didn't have any huge expectations and then be let down. But I do know how to catch attention, and how to make people engaged. And I had been taught when I was doing some training for my own children, um, put on a big smile. If you don't have energy, pretend you have energy and just go out there and, hey, how's it going? And be, be very kind and patient, which is something I don't have a lot of patience, but I have definitely learned a lot of patience with these kids.
Very good. And so now, what learning difficulties are you working with in your studio, like autism? Yes.
Yes, I have autism, children on various points on the
Spectrum.
spectrum.
Yeah, it's a
I
very broad
have
spectrum, isn't it?
Yes, yes, and no two autistic children are the same, so you just never know what you're gonna get. um, my studio also has children with ADHD. It's
Mm-hmm.
very difficult for them to calm down and sit and focus. I have students and even adults in my studio that suffer from severe anxiety and depression,
Mm.
um, and just various learning disabilities as well. So they think they're not smart,
Mm-hmm.
but they come to the studio, and one of my big goals is to make them feel good. And yes, you can make music. So.
Very good. So, are there any key things? I mean, imagine everybody seems to talk about having a tool a toolkit, of many different things that you can pretty much pivot to, and flexibility pivoting to things at a moment's notice. Are there any key things that you find that really work well and make all lessons with children with learning difficulties really flow nicely?
Yes, I always stick to a schedule.
Mm.
And depending on the child, I might even print out or print off and have on my wall, we are going to do this first, then this. And I like the Velcro um, pictures. So
Mm.
everything's a picture and it's just a strip.
Mm.
And we put all the pictures in order, things we are going to do.
Mm.
And um, as we accomplish each thing, the student gets to take off that picture and put it in our envelope, the all done envelope. So throughout this schedule, we'll have fun things, we'll have stretching exercises, we'll do a scale, depending on what they're working on. So throughout there, we'll have fun activities or something that they want to work towards.
Mm.
As long as they know that if we finish that one activity, we get closer to the big prize at the end. Sometimes we do get to the end, other times we don't, and that's okay. I usually keep those strips for that student, and we will continue on the following week. So
Is
they don't
there a
feel
big
bad. They
prize
don't
at
get
the end?
sad.
Is there? Oh, what's the big prize?
Yes. So a lot of these kids, they just love chocolate. Who
Mm.
doesn't love chocolate,
Yeah.
right? So we have various kind. I always ask what their favorite snack is, or their favorite chocolate, or what is their favorite sport. And if I'm out and I find something, then I just keep that. And when they do something really good or we've accomplished something, um, they get to pick from, it's usually a little basket with just a couple of things in it, because if there's too much it's too overwhelming and they never choose. uh, but just a couple of things, and yeah, they love working towards something. You just need
Mm.
to find what that something is.
Yeah. And I guess if they're into Star Wars at the moment, or cats, or something like that, of little razors and stickers and those kinds of things, is that
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
And I have a child who wanted me to play Star Wars music for him. And so instead, I turned it around and I said, how about we learn a Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars piece? You're going to learn the Star Wars piece. And he just thought that was the best thing. Yes, I'll work towards that. Afterwards, I thought, oh my goodness, he didn't even realize that he worked for work.
That's perfect. Well, Janet is one of our beautiful founding members of Piano Teaching Success Studio, which is our members only community for piano teachers looking to engage and keep students through using whole body learning. And Janet joined earlier this year after our first teaching challenge, and I asked Janet to share some of the activities and resources she uses to help her students with learning difficulties. So how were your lessons going before you started using whole body learning? I think you joined the challenge with us last time, didn't you?
I did, and it was such an eye opener. And before I felt like I was flying by the seat of my pants, really. If I ran into a situation with a student, I was literally thinking as we were going along, what can I do? Let's do this. Without projecting that to my student, especially these children that are just so in tune with um, how others are feeling or how they're reacting and how they're speaking. So that was my teaching style, just fly by the seat of my pants. I couldn't write a lesson plan because it just never worked with these children. I wanted to do certain things, but if he or she was having an off day, it was terrible.
Get it.
Um, and so it was just very frustrating. And then I joined the challenge, and I'm a studio member now, and it has totally turned the studio around. These kids are loving it. They are doing rhythms that I didn't think they would ever do. They're singing along. They know their do re mi's, and some of them can even sing it on pitch. So it's been awesome. And I have one child in particular, one student in particular. Every day he leaves, or every week after we finish our lesson, he'll say, "Mrs. Olsen, this was the best lesson ever." So I've got to keep up that momentum so that every week it's his best
That's
lesson
good.
ever. And whereas before he would just walk out, okay, yeah, we'll see you next week, goodbye. But now he's like, this is best lesson ever. So
That's
it's
so good.
awesome. Yes.
And didn't you have a little boy that you've been trying to teach the notes to, and then you just did the do song with him, and then he went, "What? I've been trying to teach this for."
Yes, yeah. It was actually this little boy that I was just referring to, who always has the best lessons ever. Um, it's amazing. I was teaching a concept that he just couldn't get. Do re mi, right,
Mm.
was the concept, and as soon as that backing track came on, it was a light bulb. He loved. I actually changed it a little bit. It was more like a Simon Says is what I started it off
Yeah.
with. And so, we just went through the whole motion, and this is do, and re, and all the super slow. Um, but by the time I turned on that backing track, it was wow to him. And he got it like this. It was so quick, and he loves that activity. Whenever he's having a bad day or is getting frustrated, we all go back to it. I'm like, you know what? Let's do our do re mi's. Show
Yeah.
me how they
Yeah.
are today.
Yeah.
Repetition and just finding an activity that they really
Really
love.
like it. Yeah.
They will never get bored of it.
Yeah. Well, I can do it. We always like everything we can do, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And the other thing, I think another funny quote, I think you sort of said something about that he thinks that Mr. Paul is there doing the
Yes.
videos. What's that?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So he loves these backing tracks so much and he loves seeing Mr. Paul every week, that he honestly thinks that Paul has made all of these videos for him, because how could he loves all of the activities and the music, and how is it that Mr. Paul knows him so well, and he loves all the songs that Mr. Paul writes and sends backing tracks every week for him. So he's
I
very
wonder it's the best
excited.
lesson ever, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we may have to send Mr. Paul a little note or a video or something, because
Yeah.
that would totally make his day.
We'll have to organise one of those. I have to know his name.
Yeah.
And of course, inside the studio, there's tons and tons of backing tracks. And you have one of your students working with, I think, Mozart. Was that right?
Yes, with Mozart. Yes, the one that was part of the challenge. So I did take that, and this student. So I have a couple of students, but one in particular. He's an older student. He's a teenager, and rhythm just isn't his forte,
Mhm.
and so he avoided anything that had to do with right hand and left hand being playing separately and then having to play together. That just wasn't his cup of tea. So I never showed him the music at all,
Mm.
and we just started, and I believe that was one of the tips that you had
Mm.
suggested. Just start off the bat with the rhythm. And so it was a game. He wasn't too sure, teenage boy. He's a lot taller than I am. What do you mean we're going to play a game? And you want me to stand up? What? But you know what? He got up. He got up,
Wow.
and he was a little embarrassed first. Um, but we did it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is cool." And we just did that for a couple of weeks. Really, he had no clue why we were
It's a
doing
tricky
it,
rhythm.
and it is a tricky rhythm,
Mm,
and it took a while.
mm,
What we ended up doing was we had pieces of papers in different colors,
mhm.
and then one color was for the right hand, the other color was for the left hand. And then when I had him clap for hands together, and there was another stripe
Ah,
on the outside. And I had him memorize the colors.
wow.
So it was, I don't know, blue, pink, white,
Yeah.
blue, white, pink, whatever it
It
was,
was
right?
something a bit like that,
And
wasn't it? It was right, left together, and then it
right.
changed.
He was
Yeah.
just so confused. His
Mm.
he has a little bit of
Dyslexia.
dyslexia
I was
as
going to ask that.
well.
Does he have
Yeah.
dyslexia? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was easier for him just to do colors.
Yeah,
Uh,
they often say that a lot of people have been saying that color really helps people with dyslexia. Mm.
So he's been reading colors. That's what we do. But he is so good. Um, I was just surprised. His mother was very surprised too. And I think he was really impressed with himself that he
Yes.
actually accomplished something that has been really hard for him. And
Mm.
really, I didn't do anything grandiose. It was just colors, and so you could do a lot with colors.
You can do a lot with colors, and that was a great idea for you to take even what we did, which is pull back even to
Hmm.
another level back and looking the colors to help him navigate
Right.
his way through that. Because it is a bit tricky that whole because it's a 3/4 rhythm, and then sometimes you've
It
got
is.
the together on the second beat, and that's not
Yeah.
easy to do.
Yeah.
So well done. That was he could also a lot of people, children or people who suffer from dyslexia or have that condition also have dyspraxia, and I think that can also help affect that kind of coordinational aspect
Right.
as well. So
Right.
maybe that's also in that picture there. Well, we've also got some questions. We've had some questions in. This has just been such a big topic, and I didn't realize when we started it we were going to do one show. We now got 3 shows. And generous, so many generous experts who are doing
Hmm.
really great work, like yourself, and so many others to share that. And but also we've had so many questions in as well. So we've had this question comes from Rose Powell in New Zealand, who teaches several students with high functioning autism. Mainly, this affects their ability to sustain concentration during repetitive tasks, and especially their willingness to carry out these repetitive tasks at
Yes.
home during
Yes.
practice. And so we all know that playing, and she says, we all know that playing through everything once just isn't enough to see a sustained improvement. And she would
Right.
like some hints on how to help these students work through the necessary repetitions to see that improvement without exploding from frustration in the process.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Well, thanks for the question, Rose. Um, all teachers have that problem, it seems, whether or not they're teaching special needs or normal
yeah.
normal students. Um, so I this isn't anything. I'm going to give you a little idea, and this isn't anything that I specifically do with my special needs kids. I just do it with everyone in my studio, especially when they're starting to learn good practice habits. And this was out of desperation a few years ago, but I've been using it ever since, and it seems to be working just fine. So this is just a little clip. I just found them at the dollar store, and it's a clip so that they don't lose it. It
Mhm.
it clips in their music bag, or it can even clip um, their music and
Mhm.
keep it in place.
Did you decorate that nicely on the top there, or did it come like that?
Which one? Oh,
With
with
the,
the face?
oh, no, no, with the little bit of beads and the ribbon.
Oh yes, I'm gonna get to that. Yes, I'm gonna tell you what this
Oh, okay.
is.
I'm
I
getting
did
ahead.
it. I did do this, and I just found I was lucky. I went to a craft store and I was walking by, and they had this awesome music ribbon. It's just a staff
Mm,
and some
yep.
notes, and so I bought some, and I just tied it one end, put some beads, and I have 6 beads on this one. You can put as many as you want. These are going to be your practice or your repetitions. Okay, so if
Mm,
you have a student that is going to need more than six, then you can add
Put
or
more.
subtract. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. And then you just tie it at the end. So I have my students put their beads on one end and they practice or they repeat whatever they need repeating. And once they've done that and it's correct, then they move the bead over. Now, some of my students, I just need them to practice more, whether or
Mm.
not, or to repeat more, whether or not it's correct. I mean, just the
Like
mere
time
fact
on the
that they've
stool.
done, yes, that's right. But others need a little more. So I allow those students to move their bead. But if they make a mistake, say on bead four, they have to start all over again.
Oh, I
So
thought you were
there
going to say
can
one bead went back, but all of them go back.
all of them go back. So some students love this because they love competition.
Yeah.
They need something intense. I have a lot of sports kids in
Mm.
the studio, so this works wonders with them because
Mm.
they never want to be on the losing team, right? Even if it's a team of one. Um, so this is great, and you can change it up depending on the student that will be using this. You don't have to do it this way. I've seen them different with like necklaces, and you just move over to one side and move over to another side. And that might be fun for someone that needs like to hold
Mm.
things.
Mm.
I have some students that really need to hold
Yes.
physical. So you just use
Mm.
bigger beads and maybe just string them on a necklace and have them wear their necklace to class. And you can use that as a reward system as well. For example, a bead will be moved over or around the neck if we finished a task.
Mm. Mm.
And then if we do 5 tasks or 6 tasks in our lesson, we get a prize or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
great.
this is something that really, really has helped me. I hope it helps you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a lovely idea. We've also have another question from Michelle Blunt. Michelle asked that many students come to us without diagnosis or any prep from the parents. So, how do you address this with a parent if because you're not qualified to make this special need diagnosis for special needs? So, yeah. So, how do you approach parents?
That is a tough one, Michelle. And I wish there was something magical that I can say. We There's a fine line that we have to walk on sometimes. Sometimes the parents are not ready to hear that there's something potentially wrong with their child.
Yeah.
And that's a big hurdle. So my suggestion is just first of all come to it with humility, with not putting the blame on anything, and just concern. And I think once the parents see that, then they will open up a little more and you're able to communicate better with them. Communication is very key. Um, and to have some sort of trust, build some sort of trust. So, in my own personal
Experience.
experience,
Mm-hmm.
experience, it has happened to me a few times. And basically, I set up an appointment with the parent. They usually come into the studio. Um, I prefer that they come into the studio. That way, I can just see their body language as well
Yeah.
instead of over the phone. Um, and just something like, I love working with your child. We have so much fun. I'm wanting to use such and such strategy because I feel that he benefit because
Yeah.
blank, right?
And then it could be where they might go, oh yeah, at school they're doing that sort of thing
Exactly.
with him as well.
And that's what you want. You want them to open up. And you
Mm.
can ask leading questions, right? In order to get your answer or a answer of some kind. So I try to stay away from yes and no
Mm.
answers
Mm.
um, because those are just cut off yes and no, and where do you go from there?
Mm.
You can also ask just, I was just curious, how is so and so doing at school? Is he enjoying school? Because he's really enjoying music as well. Or has our music class or our lessons benefited him in his music lessons at school?
Yeah.
You can get a lot of information from that. Always being respectful that a parent may not be there yet, may not be able to take um, somebody else saying something about their
Mm.
child,
Mm.
or have you noticed that? I've noticed this.
Mm. I think one of
And
the key points you just said then is coming to them with an answer, not an answer, but like a strategy. I'm just thinking he doesn't seem to be picking up the reading as quickly or he's not, doesn't seem, seems to be perhaps struggling a little bit with the reading approach. So I want to try a different approach. I want to try this movement approach and a singing approach because some children just learn better that way. Yeah. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes if you come with a solution rather than, oh, he's not reading very well,
right. No
then they go,
parent wants to
oh, they
hear
feel like,
that. Yeah.
say that again?
No parent wants to hear that from, anybody else about their child.
No.
Um, you know. So another little line I've used is, your child would be an awesome candidate for me to try.
Yes. Great idea.
You know.
Yeah. And it's all in that beautiful way you also said that, with
Yeah.
enthusiasm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
With your own children, because you've got two special needs children, how long before you kind of right onto it when they were really little, or did it take a while for you to go, oops, hang on a minute, something's happening here?
Well, with my oldest child that has special needs, there is.
So can we just put this into context? Janet has 4 kids.
I have 4 kids.
So,
Two
and
girls
it's
and 2 boys.
yeah. Oh, 2 boys at the bottom. Yeah. So the 2 girls are not special needs, but the 2 youngest ones are. So it wasn't your first rodeo when you'd had a 3rd child, right?
Yes. Yes. So my son, or when my son was born, a few months after he was born, my sister-in-law gave birth. So there are the two of them
cousins.
the cousins are close in age. They're the same age. And I started noticing that her son was hitting milestones a lot faster than mine was. It was like night and day. And at first I thought, oh, well, he's just a baby and the girls are doing everything for him. And because he's a boy, he's a slow learner anyway. So it's fine.
And a wide variety in milestones.
Yeah. So I really wasn't worried about it. And by the time he was about 14, 15 months, maybe, that's when I knew, hey, there's something going on. These two are not, and they spent time together. So it wasn't like I was doing anything different in my own home, and my sister-in-law was doing something totally different. They were spending time together regularly.
So it was very apparent.
Yeah, so it was very, very apparent. And then, long story short, we took him to the doctor, and he got diagnosed. By the time he was 18 months, he was already diagnosed, and it's been a whirlwind. Now with my youngest son, because we knew and had experience, we knew what to look for. And his wasn't as pronounced as our older son, but there were definitely signs there that there's something going on. So we just were proactive, and we took him in, and that was the end of that. By the time he was maybe around the same age, 18 months, he was diagnosed as well. And so.
And you can do a lot. There's a lot of intervention stuff that you can do when they are diagnosed so young, isn't it? You can start that work earlier.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Early intervention is definitely key. And music can be a form of intervention as well. So, yeah.
That's very good. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, flexibility is a key theme, and we hear this from all of our experts.
So here's Caryn Eastman to give us some ideas about what kind of activities we can turn to on those days when a student walks through the door and you realise, today isn't going to go quite as planned.
Because they will come in one week totally focused and you can just do so much because of that intelligence part, and the focus just happens. The next week, well, yeah, you might not really have a lesson, but you've nurtured a child for half an hour in something positive, and you might go off track and throw something from YouTube or whatever, just to have fun.
So I'm getting the kind of feeling about this that very often with a normal or standard student without learning difficulties, as you'd be teacher-led, the curriculum is teacher-led. You're going to do this.
Yes.
Generally, I'm going to try
and don't we?
Yeah.
We have a sequence and we go on it. Yep.
Yeah. But with this, I'm thinking we're going to be more student-led.
Oh yes, you gotta pick the vibe as they walk through the door.
Yeah.
How are they today? Have they just had a bad experience with school? So something negative happened? It's that. I mean, I'm sure we all ask the kids as they walk in the door, "How was your day?" But with the children with special needs, you've got to really listen to how they answer that one, because straight away that tells you what you're going to achieve in that lesson.
Yeah.
And it might be just, lots of clapping and ear training and fun sort of stuff, and not even open the piano book that day.
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about that.
What piano piece and do the scale.
Yeah. So skill building, like oral work and rhythm work and all that kind of stuff, is a really valuable thing in a day that you're thinking, this is not going to be a high action day. Like, this is not going to be a high. Yeah. They're very valuable skills to do, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's where I think, as a piano teacher, because of my very vast many years of Kodai training and my emphasis on all the ear training and the rhythmic training and singing and all of that, there's always something else in my toolkit that doesn't have to be piano, but it enhances the piano skills when you get to the piano. And these kids might walk in the door after a bad day at school, and you may spend 15 minutes on the floor with rhythm sticks and whatever. But then, you might say, is there a piano piece you want to play for me? And up they go to the piano. So you honed them into a point of focus. They've forgotten about what happened outside that day, because they're in your environment and they know you care. So I think, as I said, when I started this journey with special needs children, I just worked on loving them.
Oh, lovely.
The rest of it just went from there.
It's just so nice. Caryn is a classroom music specialist during the daytime and a piano teacher in the afternoons and evenings. Yes, she's very busy. And she shares her experiences with students in both environments and how being flexible and yet providing some boundaries, we can be the highlight of their week, and how the work we do is just so valuable on so many levels. I imagine with non-verbals too, if they feel as though, I imagine I would feel this way, that if my child can learn the language of music and express themselves through that, if they're not good at doing English, that's okay. Yeah. I just like to give them something else.
That's absolutely right. And this is why it's so important these children get an opportunity to do music. Yeah, I even had at the school a non-verbal child join the choir.
Okay, how did that go?
Well, he stood there and listened. But he was in the choir and he loved it. Because his mum rang me, she said, look, I'm really sorry, but he wants to join the choir. I said, send him to choir. Like, what's the deal? I said, you never know, he might sing. He never did, but did you do actions do you do actions in your choir? Did he do that? I don't particularly do a lot of that, no, but he just wanted to be there. His friends were in it and he stood next to
be part of them.
And and like, he was verbal at home. He was just non-verbal at school. The classroom teacher used to go to his house every now and again and do work with him and talk to him at home, because he would talk to her at home. So
he felt safe there.
There's different levels of non-verbal. And like, a child might be non-verbal at school, but when they come to your piano studio, they may talk. If they talk at home, your studio, they may link more to like their home environment with just one adult around or something.
Yeah.
So don't think because a parent says a child's non-verbal that they might actually turn around and talk to you.
And what about singing? Is like, sometimes people can sing and they won't talk.
Well, there's another category. We've got all these little pockets. And that's what you've got to try. Because I always do a lot of singing with the students.
I was going to say that. Is it really important for you to sing?
Yeah, that's why my voice is not too good this week. I've sung too much. Yeah, I sing all the time. So, and I do that even if they're nonverbal, because you just never know. They may just accidentally sing.
Yes.
It's not usually a physical problem. It's a mental problem. It's an intellectual connection. I don't know. It's more probably emotionally. There's other reasons why they're not talking. It's very rarely a physical thing. So I think, I pretty much do all the singing and teach the lesson if they're nonverbal, just as if they were going to talk to me, because if you don't give them a chance to talk, they might,
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got to try not to look surprised. Because then they will close down, because they'll have shocked themselves that they spoke too.
Yeah, then they won't do it again anymore.
Yeah, so you've got to be ready for that could happen and flow on.
Caryn's going to share some tips for thinking creatively when using extra resources, including those cute little erasers you might have in your cupboard. I'm thinking you mentioned some crayons there. I'm sure you've got some other manipulatives or teaching resources.
We were talking to before about my cute little cats and dogs, because I'm not really a cat person, actually.
No, not mother of 3 dogs.
I'm a poodle mummy. Yeah, so I've got you just get these cute little erasers. I pitched this idea off. It was on an American Facebook group. These little erasers. So we do amazing.
What do you do with them?
Well, when the kids are just starting, they'll put them all on the C's or the D's, just the whole geography of the piano keyboard. I've made sure I bought enough packets that I got 8, so I've got an octave of each one. So they will put them on the scale, when they're starting their scales, with intervals. So yeah, we do all sort of stuff like that. Particularly the special needs kids, once you've lost their focus, you get your cats or your dogs out, and just whatever they're doing, even just their piece, like you were saying before about patterning, what's the first bar, that you might put the cats on the notes for the first bar and link it to the piece. And you see a child that's dyslexic, that takes the reading to a physical, hands-on.
What I've discovered through researching this shows is that teaching using multiple senses is profound for all children, and especially so for children with learning difficulties. And so next show, Paul and I will share some ideas and resources you can use in your studio with students with and without learning difficulties. You may be wondering, how do I teach piano using this other senses? Like, I get the whole visual thing because we just teach with reading, right? We teach with the music in front of us. We maybe have some flashcards, and maybe we do some theory writing, which is kind of visual as well. A little bit of kinesthetic in there as well. But, that's pretty obvious. But what about auditory? And what about the kinesthetic senses? Well, we're going to share some simple things that you can do straight away in your studio next week. When I started research for these shows on teaching children with learning difficulties, I really didn't realise the level of need for quality information and guidance in our community. Before I go, I'd just like to say I've been so overwhelmed at how generous others have been in sharing their knowledge, and I'd like to thank our contributors to this series, Dr. Erin Parks, Ashley Hughes, Lydia Meem, Caryn Eastman and Alison Simpson for their knowledge and expertise, and on behalf of piano teachers around the world who watch these shows. Well, that's all we have time for today. I'd like to thank Janet Olsen, Caryn Eastman for sharing their experience with us today. And we're going to be back in about 2 weeks' time with another great episode of Piano Teaching Success TV. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you click that like and subscribe buttons now, and to make sure you get notified of when our next episode is released. Remember to send us your questions for future episodes at pianoteachingsuccess.com. And I'd like to thank Paul, who's been producing today's show and is responsible for the videos and all the behind-scenes tech. On behalf of all of us, stay well. See you next time.